Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Once in a while, I read the essay and then talk about it, and I'm going to do that today. I'm the president now. Everyone says so. I wonder what would happen if we all started lying in the face of reality with absolute confidence and then walked away. It sounds insane, but there are people who live their lives that way. A year and change ago, which feels like 94 years ago, my neighbor did a project in her backyard. Her backyard is directly behind mine, and her street sits higher. Two things it will be helpful to know. She'd come over with her gardener one day and asked if we could talk in my backyard, explaining that she wanted to replace the fence along the back wall of her garden. The way it was described to me was that some vines over my studio, directly below her new fence, would be trimmed and cleared away. Her gardener would come over after the fence went up to remove anything that might land on my side. No problem. It's not like she needed my permission to replace her fence. It was nice of her to let me know. We exchanged numbers so they could tell me when they were going to do the work. It was all very friendly. As it turned out, I was back east when her fence went up, so I wasn't there and no one texted. It was not the greatest homecoming. This was a few months after the massive wildfires. When I got home, I had a tremendous amount, indescribable, and there are two pictures in the essay which I'm going to explain to you now, of what I saw. The branches, this was not vines, there were branches that had been cut back and they had piled up between the outer wall of my studio and the shared back wall of my backyard and hers. So the outer wall of my studio is about 12, maybe 15 feet high. And the branches, there were so many of them that they had piled up behind the studio and then up onto my roof. And the branches on my roof, probably a good 5 feet of branches, all covered with dead leaves. So that's what I was looking at, and there are pictures in the essay. Okay. This was a few months after the massive wildfires. So basically, they'd left an outrageous amount of kindling on my roof. As we learned, it doesn't take much. Strong winds, dry heat, and a spark. I was amazed anyone would be that reckless after what we'd lived through, but I thought it was possible my neighbor didn't know the mess had been left behind. I took pictures and texted them to her, and then I called. I was friendly, all things considered. Said I'd been away for the weekend, had come back to find this situation, and was worried about the fire hazard. Did she know when the gardener was planning to come by? She said he was supposed to have cleared everything from my yard, and she'd text me his number. I admit I didn't love this response. I would have preferred she called him herself and let me know the plan. But who has time to get worked up about how things should be anymore or what people should do? You can make yourself sick that way. The gardener, we'll call him Fernando because that's his name, picked up on the first ring. I said hi and reminded him we'd met when he was in my yard. He'd been terrific at the time. I explained about all the branches, which seemed unnecessary because he had to know, and asked when he was planning to come by. He said, "Anything on your side is your responsibility." I started laughing because I thought he was joking, but he didn't join in. "Oh, wait, are you not joking?" I asked after my laughter trailed off into awkward silence and I realized it was not because we'd lost the signal. "No, if it's on your side, you take care of it," he said. I think maybe you should call Gloria. I just spoke with her and she feels certain hauling the branches away was part of what you all talked about. I know that's what we said the day you were here. Text me some pictures, he said. I texted him the pictures I'd taken. That will be $450. Just so I understand, you want me to pay $450 to haul away the branches that are in my yard because of a project Gloria did, when part of what she paid for was to have the branches removed. Listen, you need to speak to me respectfully, Fernando yelled. I'm sorry, what? I said. I was starting to wonder if I was being punked. I am being respectful, but there's enough kindling on my roof to start a wildfire, so I'm anxious and very interested in having it removed as soon as possible. Telling me if it's on my side, it's my responsibility is like letting your dog crap on someone's lawn and then telling them they should clean up the mess because no one wants to smell it and someone is going to step in it. It's kind of like, I don't know, starting a war no one asked for, and then when the Strait of Hormuz gets shut down, telling the other NATO countries that you've been alienating and insulting for months, it's their responsibility to help secure it and get it open again. Except in the case of the fence, at least they asked first, haha. Maybe I should have been happy Fernando didn't tell me to just take it, grab that fence and cherish it. I got someone else to come clear the branches, and Gloria paid for it. I would think it must feel horrific, shameful, and deeply embarrassing to have started a war that has cost about $35 billion at this point. And so much worse, the lives of 170 Iranian schoolgirls and 13 U.S. service members. Knowing Americans have spent an estimated $8.4 billion more on gas because of this insanity, while you've cut more than half of all federal funding for gun violence prevention, and gun violence is the number one reason children die in this country. Millions can no longer afford health care and are struggling to feed their families. And all you've managed to do is close the Strait of Hormuz and throw the world into total economic disarray. Spain, France, Italy, Austria, and Switzerland have restricted base access and or their airspace to U.S. military flights because they oppose the war in Iran. And now you star in Iranian Lego animation as a guy named Loser. I don't think I'd be able to leave the Golden Oval. But not this guy. He just gets up in front of the American people and says the war will be over in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe, somehow, probably. Says that talks are going really well. Iran refutes this claim. Now we have regime change, except there is no regime change. The people who have replaced senior leaders are equally as hardline or more militant. So it isn't a war, but if it is a war, we need to be fighting wars because America is large. So we can't afford to pay for childcare because large countries can't pay for childcare, I guess. The states have to do that, shrug. And Medicaid and Medicare too. And we in America don't need the dumb straight anyway. We are completely energy independent, even though we definitely are not. Also, NATO sucks, the Supreme Court sucks, birthright citizenship sucks, and mail-in voting sucks, even though he just mailed in his vote. It's so weird to me because if I was going to lie to someone, let alone a whole country, I would have such a hard time looking them in the eye. I don't think I could do it at this point in my life. It is so not the person I want to be. When I was younger, sometimes I would avoid telling the truth if it would hurt a person's feelings. But I learned along the way that's a form of disrespect. Obviously, you want to say what's in your heart with as much compassion as possible, but you do no one any favors by sparing them the truth out of pity or your own fear. If it's a thing that doesn't need to be said, that's another story. When my kids were little, I remember teaching them how powerful words can be, how they can make people feel so loved, safe, and understood, or they can make a person feel hurt and alone. I taught them the mindful communication concept often attributed to Rumi. Before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Somehow my son thought one of the gates was, is it funny? But that's because he's my kid. I happen to think that's a legit gate. I can't imagine a worse job than getting up in front of the entire world and saying a bunch of things you know are absolutely not kind, true, necessary, or funny. But I guess this president is stuck. Not that I believe he cares. I think he cares about losing face. A narcissist will never admit they've made a mistake. It's in the handbook. They don't say they're sorry either. If something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault. Then there are people who will bend a narrative to make it fit their worldview, no matter how far they have to bend it. I don't know if you've heard about the anesthesiologist who allegedly tried to throw his wife off a cliff in Maui for having an emotional affair. Swell guy. He has 2 older kids from a previous marriage and 2 young sons with his wife. After a year of therapy spent working on their relationship, he took her on a birthday hike in Maui and brought syringes full of a heavy sedative. I guess it was that or a bottle of water. When he allegedly failed to launch her off the cliff, he hit her on the head with a rock multiple times, a lava rock, and was only stopped by 2 hikers who heard his wife screaming for help. Then he called his 19-year-old son and told him to take care of the younger kids. He told his son he tried to kill his wife, the boy's stepmom, but had not succeeded, and now he was going to take his own life. His son told him not to do that. Somehow this man is pleading not guilty and saying his wife attacked him and he hit her in self-defense. And I don't know what possible reason he's going to come up with for bringing sedative-filled syringes on a hike, but I'm sure he'll come up with something. He seems very sad in court, but it's hard to say why. Is it because he's probably spending the rest of his life in prison? Sad his children will know this is who their dad is? He's saying his wife grabbed him by the testicles and wouldn't let go, and he hit her in self-defense with those pesky pre-filled syringes in his pocket. Then he called his son and said he'd tried to kill her, but now he's saying his son misunderstood that part. His kid got up and testified as to what happened. Didn't sound like there was any room for misunderstanding. People in the comments were saying some wild and terrifying things. She provoked her husband by having an emotional affair. I see. So it's okay that he tried to murder her? Really trying to wrap my head around that, and wondering if the same rules apply if a woman tries to push her husband off a cliff for exchanging flirty texts with a coworker. Is that where we are? If people are sending too familiar texts, have we decided as a society that the appropriate punishment is death by cliffside hike? Or is that just for wives? There's a picture of a woman sitting on a cliff, and I wrote in the caption, her husband could have seen the view too, if only. Then there were comments about the poor son who was going to have to live with the guilt of having betrayed his father for the rest of his life. No, he won't. He did not betray his father. His father betrayed him by putting him in that horrendous position. His father betrayed the entire family by not managing his feelings in a normal, rational way. Get a divorce, man. I am truly starting to feel men are too emotional to be holding down important jobs. Oops, not all men. There are a lot of people out there who love to throw stones and are certainly not thinking about the 3 gates before they speak. I saw a video of a woman named Karen who has an Instagram account for her company, Rafa Farms. They make goat milk skincare, but I started following the account because baby goats are pretty much the antidote for everything. She said recently someone had commented that her house didn't look very clean. Y'all, she is running an entire business out of her kitchen, but she didn't even say that. It turns out her daughter died 8 months ago. Her voice broke when she said it, and I was crying with her in 0.5 seconds. She didn't offer this in an angry or defensive way. She shared it as a reminder that you never know what anyone is going through, ever. It's a safe bet almost everyone is going through something. She said when her kids were little and they wanted to go swimming or read a book, she always let the cleaning wait and she never regretted it. I was sobbing by the time she was done. People like Christy Nome really ought to take a page out of that book, though I don't hold out a lot of hope. She has caused so much pain and suffering for so many people, countless people, and so many of them in the LGBTQ community. She has made life miserable and less safe for transgender kids everywhere. She is loudly and passionately opposed to same sex marriage. And look what happens, friends. Her own husband must have been in pain all these years in his own personal hell, living a life of secrets and feeling like he couldn't share his feelings with his own wife, who claims to be this traditional, family values, upstanding Christian woman. Meanwhile, she's sending human beings to exist 80 people to a cage. It doesn't work that way, though I know anyone reading this or listening already agrees with me. You can't claim to be a good and decent person and also hurt people and lie and cheat and shoot puppies because you have no patience or empathy or decency. It's always the people who are screaming the most loudly about how other people should live who have the most work to do on themselves. Always. You can't lie and be a mouthpiece for the most despicable human beings doing the most horrific things and think that's somehow going to be okay. Bye, Pam Bondi. May the suffering of every Epstein victim you did not serve haunt you in your sleep for the rest of your life. Notice it's the women being thrown out of the club first, to no one's surprise. No one like me, anyway. Conservative women always think proximity will keep them safe, but the shark will always eat your face when you stop being useful. I may have started this essay by asking what would happen if we all started stating preposterous things as if they were true, but there are plenty of people doing that these days. Even if there weren't, there are those of us who grew up being told that our perception was faulty and what we thought was happening was not happening. We were overly sensitive or dramatic. For people who relate, calling things what they are is grounding. Naming the monster takes the power away from it. It's reassuring. It makes you feel sane and calm, even if the truth breaks your heart. It's okay if your heart breaks. It's the hardened heart you have to fear. A hardened heart can lie with impunity. An open, loving heart is strong. It's meant to break and heal and break again. If it wasn't meant to do that, none of us would still be here shining away, fighting for the world to be better than this. So, basically, I was writing about lying, about just this ability of some people to just say things that they know are blatantly not true with absolute disregard for, the truth or decency or and it's fascinating to me. I really, not in a good way, not in a not a wow, but just it's like in a kind of, horrifying way, like where you can't understand what you're looking at, like Caroline Leavitt. Like I watch her sometimes giving these press conferences and I am like, wow. I mean, I wonder, like, does she not ask herself, what is she going to tell her kids one day? It's fascinating to me. People that are just so willing and able to say things with confidence that they know are not true, or say things with enthusiasm and with conviction. It's just not something that I just don't understand it. I watch and I'm kind of like in awe, but in that like horrible way, and with my neighbor, it's not just like the when people are saying things, it's also when people are doing things that are not okay, and I don't think I don't think she really knew what had happened or what was happening when I called and told her about, the conversation I'd had with Fernando. I think we both understood. I mean, it's like I was not going to be comfortable after the way he was yelling at me, to be, you have to be respectful. And I was thinking, like, I have to be, first of all, I am being respectful. Like, I wasn't yelling or cursing or, in any way. But I was clearly like trying to understand what was happening. Like, what you want me to pay you, even though you've already been paid. And part of the project entailed like removing the stuff from my yard. And now you want to charge me for that. And I did really wonder when he was yelling at me to be respectful of all things, right? Of all words to choose, like a man yelling at me to be respectful when he had been wildly like disrespectful, right? Like to leave that stuff. And also it was a hazard, no doubt. That was, the gaslighting there was kind of amazing, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go because, and now I actually like don't want this person to come into my yard and do anything because I just I don't want to be yelled at like that. That's, no, thank you. I'll find someone else to do that. And, my neighbor was willing to pay for that, but I felt bad for her because she'd already paid for that work to be done. What can you do? I mean, it's like I'm not going to have someone who's speaking to me that way come into my house. And so just whatever, like we all have to have our boundaries, right? And be able to say that's not okay, or this is not going to work for me. No, thank you. Like, I'm not going to receive your gift of, unethical behavior, no, thank you. And those are good. I think when I was younger, it was very hard for me to do that, to be able to say no, no, thank you to that. And to hold the line if somebody was, trying to cross a boundary or do something that didn't feel okay, or, say something. I really, when I was younger, really had a tough time with confrontation. And that's part of what, it's talking about too, like as far as the three gates, right? When you're talking about like things that you're going to say, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And there's a corollary to that, like, that you want at least two out of three of those things to be true, right? Like 2 out of 3 of those gates at least. But, I think when I was like, in my 20s and younger, it was difficult. I really did not have an easy time. If somebody hurt my feelings, for example, I would project and assume that if I were to say, hey, this thing happened and it felt really awful to me, I want to talk to you about it, that they would do to themselves what I would do if I hurt someone's feelings, which, or if I didn't show up the way that I wanted to, like if I let someone down or, and for me, like if I did that, I would be so hard on myself. I would really beat myself up for days if I made a mistake or I didn't, like handle something in a way that felt good to me or felt right. So a lot of the time, if someone did something that didn't feel good or didn't, I would just kind of like do the math on both sides of the equation. I would say to myself, okay, like that didn't feel good, but I'm just going to deal with it because, if I say something, they're going to feel terrible. And that, and really that's a cop out. That's a cop out. First of all, you're robbing the other person of the opportunity to say, oh, wow, I'm so sorry. Like I blew that, or you're robbing them of the opportunity to say, well, wait a second, let's talk about that, because I'm not, it doesn't feel that way to me. I don't, I don't agree with that. Like, I feel differently about the way things went down. Like, you're robbing, you know, that person of an opportunity either to grow, or you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to like think about something in a different way, or you're robbing, both you and the other person of the chance to grow together, to get to know each other more deeply, for the relationship to grow. Um, but I didn't understand that then. I was just really, when you grow up with a lot of chaos and some violence and some uncertainty, and you're like walking on eggshells, and you're always scanning the environment to see if you're safe or not. Confrontation's scary, and telling people how you feel is scary. And if you grow up and like how you feel is really not a thing that is, in the mix a lot, right? If you're mostly worrying about how's everybody else feeling and how can I keep myself safe, and can I try to like make sure everybody's feeling okay, because that's probably the best way to keep myself safe. That's what you're trained to do. That's what the wiring is set up for. And so it's not like you're going to flip a switch when you head out into the world and you are a young adult. That's the wiring. So you're going to do that for a while until you realize this wiring is not really serving me. And so it took me some time to understand, like, this is not going to lead to really fulfilling relationships and honest relationships. And at this point in my life, I don't have time that's not interesting to me. I don't want to be in a relationship with anyone where I can't be honest and I can't say how I feel, or I have to walk on eggshells. Like, I just can't do it. I really can't do it. I definitely don't need to have agreement. Like, I'm very happy to have conversations, and hard conversations, and like anything I could, anyone that I'm close to can say anything to me, truly anything, and I will listen and think about it, and talk about anything. But I can't do the, oh, this didn't feel good, but I'm just gonna like keep it to myself, or I can't say anything because this person's gonna freak out. Like, I just can't do it anymore. I don't have the energy for that. And it's beyond like not having the energy. I just don't want that. And being able to call things out and call things what they are. For people like me, if you did grow up with that, I grew up in an alcoholic household. One of the households I was in, my mom's, and at my dad's, there was a ton of secret keeping as well, because he was just like constantly, seeing other women, and there's just a lot of lying, and trying to maintain, like, remember what he said, like where he said we were, like, just, it was constant. um and when you grow up that way, and you are being told, like with my mom, I would, as I got older, I wasn't a little kid anymore, and I would say, like, I don't think my mom's okay, or things don't seem right, or she gets so angry with me, like, it was painful. um all the people around my mom would say, she's fine, she's a social drinker, you're overly sensitive, you're dramatic. My mom would say that, and did she called me Sarah Bernhardt. So these are like the labels that are happening. And so when every adult in your life is saying that stuff, you believe it. You're like, okay, it must be me. I guess it's me. Um, and not only that, but I was writing a couple weeks ago about, some things I found as I was packing up my childhood home, and I found a letter I'd written to my mom, and I remembered, like, oh, I used to write letters to her, often. That was part of the deal. And she would drink, and she would get violent, and then I would apologize to her. I really thought it was my fault. Like I had done something, I had failed in some way. And I would tell her I would try to do better. I would try to be better and that I was sorry. And I believed that for a long time, when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Like I really thought it's me. It's my fault that she's getting this angry and that she's coming after me. And it's me. Like I need to try harder and I need to be better. And it, it's that's so sad when I think about it, now. Like I'm a mom and I think about, oh, God, just as a kid, like to feel that way, and to feel that way so strongly that you're actually writing letters and apologizing and saying that you're terrible and you'll try harder and, she deserves a better kid. Like it's a terrible, like awful thing. And that is how much I believed that. And so as an adult, when you see all these people now, right, in the world, in our world, behaving so horribly and saying things and doing things that are causing so much suffering, tangible, awful things, right, to actual human beings, it is at least grounding and calming to be able to say it out loud, name it. That is the very least. At least you can be like, okay, I'm going to be in reality right now. I'm going to say things and name things so that I know I'm not losing it here. Like this is not okay. It's not okay to deny people due process. It's not okay to spend $35 billion on a war after you just told people we can't afford to give everyone health care. We can't afford to give people affordable health care anymore. No, we're not going to extend those ACA benefits. Sorry. I'm one of those people who got screwed on that deal. Like I'm going to have to pay for a mammogram out of pocket this year, $800 next month, because my insurance doesn't cover that every year anymore. My old insurance plan did. I couldn't stay on that insurance plan anymore. It would have been $1,700 a month for me to stay on my old insurance plan. I couldn't do it. So, it's like it is helpful, at least for me, to be able to say, this administration told all of us we can't extend your ACA benefits anymore. There's not enough money for that. We don't want to give kids free lunches at school. This administration cut funding for gun violence prevention programs by half. Federal funding for gun violence prevention programs by half when it is the number one killer of children in our country. And yet we're spending $35 billion on a war that nobody wanted or asked for. At least I'm going to say some things. That's the very least of it. And, and then you look at these people and the horrible things that they're saying and doing, and it really is always the people who are screaming the most loudly about how other people should live and what they should do, and then like the Christy Nome thing and her husband. And I am the last person who's going to say anything unkind about her husband. I will absolutely not do that. But she is so unkind. She's hurt so many people with her awful rhetoric and language and behavior and actions. She has really she's a very cruel human being. She has hurt a lot of people, countless people. And her husband, I'm quite sure, is one of them. It's like, and those are always the people doing the most harm, the ones who are screaming about what other people should do. They're the ones that need to be doing the most work on themselves, always. It's always the way it is. Just think about it for a minute and you'll see. It's the people that are like talking about what everybody else should be doing. And then you find out, then suddenly they're being arrested because they've got like child porn on their computer. and it's the guy that was just screaming about like whatever, same sex marriage. Why do you care? Like, sir, why do you care? If two women want to marry each other, two men want to marry each other, why do you care? Oh, look at you. Now you like to look at, children. You absolute sick human being. You should be quiet. You have nothing to say about anything. Two people loving each other is beautiful. You looking at children, you're not well. You're not well. You should be quiet. It's always that. It's always those people. The louder they are, the more you can guarantee they are not well. So that, we all have plenty of work to do just on our own selves, always. And I was, that the woman that Karen who has that company, Rafa Farms, like I started following her account because of the baby goats. I mean, I don't know, baby goats. Like I feel like you could be feeling so down about the world, about anything, and just you just watch baby goats for a few minutes. It's like, very it's very reassuring. And so I started following that account, and I just happened to, like, last week she started, I just happened to catch this message, this video, and she was talking about that somebody had left this message about how her house was not clean. And I was, and then she started showing her kitchen, and she said that they had downsized. They moved from like a 4,200 square foot place to like a 2,200 square foot place. And she was just showing like where she makes the soaps, and where she makes the, like, they make all these different goat milk skincare products, and they treat the goats. I mean, they're just like, they love these goats. They're so, yeah, it's just so cute. And then she said, it's true. Like, my house is not as clean as it normally is. And she said, it's not just the downsizing. She said, like, my daughter died 8 months ago, and she started crying. And I'm going to start crying right now because, like, it just, it's like, it's just really so sad that anyone would be like leaving her a comment like that. This woman's like lost a child, and she's working and trying and, trying to show up for her family, and like someone's just leaving her a nasty comment like that. It's like, why? Like, why? I don't know. I don't know. It just makes me sad. It really does. It makes me sad to see the way people treat each other and speak to each other. And I know that we're all, it's a lot of people who are struggling. And I know that these angry, venomous people online, that you see, it's just like, I know that they're in pain. I know that. I am very aware of the fact that, the people who are lashing out in the most awful way are, they're the people who are in the most, hurt people, right? But still, it's like, please, right? Just think for a second before you spout off, or like, your thumbs start flying. I mean, is it necessary? Like, could you not just scroll on by if you don't have anything like nice to say, kind to say? I mean, I'm much more a proponent of being kind than nice, but like, if you have nothing good to say, just keep moving, unless we're talking about someone like who's doing harm, then I'm all for it. Like, if you want to speak up and say like, that's not okay, absolutely, do your thing. But if you're just criticizing someone, like, really, okay, move along. Really, just move along. No one needs that. Everyone's doing the best they can right now. No one needs to hear, oh, your house isn't clean. Just go away, please. Like, just don't. And to understand, most people are really struggling right now and doing the best they can. And, this guy, the Maui doctor, another doctor, right? Like there was the dentist, um, the wife and mom. I'm trying to remember. I can almost have it, but she had two little kids, and her like ex just could not. It was like 10 years later or something, and he drove, I mean, 400 miles or some crazy thing. And he was also a doctor, and he killed both of them. He killed her and the husband, and look, the kids are in the house and their dog. I mean, these people are just like, what is happening? Like, really, you can't have her, so no one can have her. Is that? And here's this guy on Maui, and it's his like second marriage. He's got the kids from the first marriage, and now he's with the second wife, and they have two sons. And his wife has an emotional affair, and he's like all over her, passwords and her emails and her phone and all that stuff. And like they go to therapy to try to repair their marriage. They've been in therapy together for a year. It's her birthday. He takes her on a hike and tries to throw her off a cliff because I guess, therapy's not going well enough for him, or he doesn't feel satisfied that he can trust her, whatever. Get a divorce. Get a divorce. Okay? If like you're not satisfied that it's been a year and you're still not feeling, get a divorce. Like you don't throw someone off a cliff. I don't, really? But people in the comments, if you go look at this, there's a giant court case going on because this man is pleading not guilty. And by the way, I didn't write about all this because I was just, we'd be there for days. But two hikers came along and saw this man hitting his wife with a rock in the head. They saw this. They came upon this. She's screaming for help, and they saw him. So there are witnesses. He had like syringes that he had taken from the hospital of Diprivan, I think it's called, which I'm pretty sure is the same stuff that killed Michael Jackson. It's like very heavy sedative that no anesthesiologist should be taking away from a hospital. So it's just all bad. It's all bad. And then he calls the son, his 19-year-old son, and says, your stepmom, my wife, has been cheating on me. And I just tried to kill her. I tried to throw her off a cliff. I didn't succeed. And now I'm going to take my own life. So he admits to it. And then the son says, don't do that, Dad. Don't do that. And then he goes and like is trying to evade the police for 8 hours. He goes and like hides for 8 hours. So it's like, I don't really know how you're going to plead not guilty at this point. And because he's pleading not guilty, his kid had to go and testify to what had happened, to the phone call, what his dad said to him. It's so sad. And people in the comments are saying, well, she provoked him by having an emotional affair. Not everyone. Obviously, a lot of people are not, like saying get a divorce. But way too many people in the comments were saying that kind of thing. Like she provoked him. It's like, so it's okay for him to try to throw her off a cliff? It's okay for him to try to murder her? Like, what are you talking about right now? So file for divorce. It's just, and then there were people saying, oh, this poor son is going to have guilt for the rest of his life for betraying his dad. No, he did not betray his dad. His dad betrayed him. By putting him in that position, he betrayed the whole family by putting them in that position. Like, this kid didn't do anything except have ethics. He's got up there and said what happened. He told the truth. you know, in my book, you do not get in trouble for telling the truth. It's like that's the thing to do. And if you're talking about a personal situation, you tell the truth in the kindest way possible. But you're not helping anybody by not telling them the truth. That's not respectful. Um so so that and you know, I'm I'm not the president now, but if I were the president, um things would be a lot different. Things would be a lot different. We'd be having all kinds of different conversations. The ERA would be ratified instantly. We would not have a gender pay gap anymore. We would have universal health care for everyone. We would be like having the biggest DEI parade ever, like right away. And we would not be, this war, no, this is not how we would be spending our money. We'd be making sure everybody could eat in our country, and we'd be talking about like, childcare, paid time off. We'd be talking about a lot of things. We'd be talking about investing in our education system and our teachers. We would be talking about, oh my goodness, we'd be having so many conversations about the environment. Yeah, we'd be having lots of conversations. So sadly, not the case, but it's fun to imagine. So anyway, I appreciate all of your amazing comments. I always love talking to y'all in the comments. It's like my favorite. Honestly, it's a highlight of my week. I love it so much. I love this community. And thank you to those of you who listen to the podcast. And just, I love you. And I know we're living through the strangest, I did not think it was going to be like this. And I think most of us feel that way. But I'm so grateful that we're at least together, and that we have each other. I'm really, really grateful. And I'm sending you a lot of love, and you know where to find me if you need a little extra support. Okay. Bye until next time.